I've messed that up, apparently. Alright, let me get this right. There we go. Welcome back to Mixed Media. It's another week where we're going to be talking lots and hopefully entertaining y'all. And this week we've got a wonderful set of things to talk about, things to do. And without further ado, I guess we'll introduce ourselves. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and a media entrepreneur.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer.
I'm Nathan Nestor, a 3D modeler and game designer.
Sweet. And so Mixed Media is a weekly live-streamed podcast where we talk about pretty much anything art-related. That's the best description I can give. And of course, we have our respective particular interests, which you just heard. And we like to come at it from many different angles. So if you enjoy having, probably a little bit more elevated discussions about art in general, this would be the right place for you. Now, before we continue talking, I want to shout out two people, 909 Crime and Rob Sharma, for still supporting us for $5 a month at our support page at mixedmedia.locals.com. And that also reminds me that there is a sale. There's a sale right now. Our support page is now $3 a month. If you get in right now at $3 a month, I actually don't know how it works. I don't know if it's a lifetime thing or not. Well, it doesn't matter to me either way. So if you join Mixed Media for $3 a month, if you want to join Mixed Media for $3 a month, whether that'll last all the way up until probably January, or if you want to be a part of the community for $3 a month forever, however it works, now's your chance to do it. So there you go. And that also reminds me, another thing is that the reward structure on Locals is going to be changing. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet, because it's a little bit complicated. But when I do know, I'll let you know. And so it's probably a good idea to get in now, I would say, so that you can get in on those perks for a lot cheaper. So yeah, how were your guys' weeks?
It's been fine. Thanksgiving was cool, so yeah.
You're really quiet on my end. Let me pull you.
Yeah, I was going to ask whether that was just me or not. I can barely hear you, Nathan.
Is this better?
No.
No.
I moved it closer and nothing happened. Okay.
I'll just pull you up on my side.
Wait,
that won't help.
Yeah, that wouldn't fix it for Ben though. Wait, how about this? This is better?
I don't think so.
It's like right. How about this?
No.
I mean, now you sound closer, but still, is your mic volume on Skype?
I didn't change the settings, so presumably it's the same. Let me.
You should probably check because Skype changes everything.
Oh, I'm using my laptop microphone right now. Okay, testing.
Oh yes, absolutely, and yes, a much better sound.
Yeah, that's probably why you heard that background noise before.
Oh, true. Okay, well, we are now in good working order. So wait, continue about your week, Nathan. Sorry.
I just said Thanksgiving was cool. I like food, so yeah.
Thanksgiving was cool, for sure. How about you, Ben?
I was saying to you earlier, I basically spent last week dealing with maybe the worst cold I've ever had, and by myself. So nothing really terribly interesting. Mostly just me lying in bed and not being very happy.
That's tends to be how it goes. For me, I had a crazy week because two things: Thanksgiving and all the stuff around that. Brewed a batch of hard cider for Thanksgiving, and that was fun. That was the second batch of hard cider I'd ever brewed, and I will say that it was a smash hit. It seems by the level of the container by the time the night had ended. It seems as though I did a good job, so I'll keep doing it. It's kind of fun and easy. So there's that, and then another big thing. This is kind of huge and kind of stole my life for the whole entirety of this last week. Is I finally am back on YouTube on my company's channel. So if you want to check that out, you can go to ariella.co. Well, actually, if you want to check out the latest video, you can go to ariella.co/mixed not mixed media. I'm so used to saying that. You can go to ariella.co/Mount Carmel, MT Carmel or MOUNT Carmel, both of them work. And you'll see a video where I talk about my recent move and show some beautiful footage. And that kind of relates to what I'm going to be talking about today, which is a massive amount of frustration with the process that was creating that video that ultimately detracted from it. But I'll talk about it for on the later segment. Any like Black Friday shopping or Cyber Monday shopping for you guys? Anything interesting?
No. I'm going to add to, this is actually from last week, but we didn't have a show last week. I put the link in our Discord chat, but self-promotion sort of, although I'm barely part of it, but I am featured on one track of this cool album by a friend of mine. It was released last week, so I don't know if Irving, you want to stick the link to that
absolutely.
Album by John Thompson, and the album title is Thursday House Desperados. So I play alto flute on one track on it, so not very prominent, but I did contribute to it a little bit. So
sweet. Oh, you put it in the stream chat. Okay, got it. Let me post that. So it's going to be in the chat now. There we are. Very cool. I'll have to check that out later for sure. Yeah, so for me, Black Friday, I got a few big things. One of them has to do with going back to content creation, which is a NAS, an NAS, a network attached storage. That's what that stands for. Really expensive. Really painful. But I'm having this last project stretched the limits of my storage, and there's no way for me to safely delete things, and it was horrendous. And I didn't realize how much a NAS does, and the NAS will actually help with some of the perks that'll be coming up on locals, serving you those perks. Well, I was gonna say without us having to pay for anything, but I had to pay for a very expensive NAS, so no continuing payments, I should say. And just a few bits and bobs, like just a desk organizing stuff, because I'm constantly colliding with my wires and gear, so trying to get that stuff out of the way. And another big thing, which Nathan should be happy about, because he's been asking me to do something for a long time, and I've been having issues doing it. But I finally got a PLA dehydrator for my 3D printer. And
what's a PLA dehydrator?
Okay, well, it basically just removes the moisture from PLA, which is the material you print with. And the reason moisture is bad is it causes the PLA to become brittle for whatever reason. So like snap and break, and it doesn't print well, it doesn't print fluidly. I had never had problems with, I guess, damp PLA. I don't know what to call it. It's not literally damp, but, I've never had a problem with it. So I was just like, whatever, I'll just throw my PLA on the side. And it's been long enough now that the PLA is now, I guess, waterlogged in some invisible way. So all my test prints have been failures. I'm risking getting PLA stuck in my actual extruder and hard for it to get out because my PLA is hydrated. So I bought a dehydrator, and hopefully that'll make Nathan happy so I can do the prints that he's been asking me to do. So there you go. Cool.
Nice. Wait, hold on. So I accidentally said Black Friday. I don't know why. Okay, I do know why. My laptop is currently struggling right now, and sometimes I press the unmute button and Skype says, "Nah, you're still muted." So that's what happened. Now I was trying to get a MIDI keyboard on sale, but they don't exist on sale apparently. So I don't know. Well, like the one I was looking at, it tends to be full price or like $10 off, which is not that great for like $100 and some item, right? I guess it's better than nothing. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I'll wait till like the Christmas season or I'll just buy it full price. But yeah, that was my. I didn't buy much else for Black Friday.
Cool. Sweet. What about news, like general industry news? I have not been keeping track of it for the past however long because I've been just so darn busy. But I don't know what you guys have noticed.
So apparently, in the UK, Black Friday video game sales are down 15%, which is pretty bad, as we see a general downward trend in video game popularity. Sorry, I should say. I don't know. No, yeah, I think it's all video games, but I think specifically PC gaming is also down. This might be a reflection of the fact that it was perhaps like at an inflated number due to like COVID lockdown type of stuff, and it's sort of just like going back to more normal levels or something like that. Although the opposite was found in China, where even China like absolutely murdered their gaming market like a while before. It went up a little bit for like the first time. I think they had I don't know what the metric was. I don't remember what the metric was for going up. I don't know if it was like purchases. I think it was like a September to October increase for the first time in like a long time because there's some national holiday, and the national on holidays they ease restrictions on video games. So and also they banned less video games this month. There was only one mobile game or something like that, up to like the normal like 10 or so. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most interesting thing from the past, I don't know, few weeks or so, and it's a little bit too complicated for me to try and explain the whole thing. But the whole there's been I guess the controversy has been going on a little bit since the release of the video game Doom Eternal. But recently, the composer Mick Gordon released an enormous, document detailing basically the kind of really abusive relationship that the company.
Sorry, continue.
What?
Sorry, continue. Go ahead.
Oh, the company kind of had with him, and kind of not allowing him to, I guess, asking too much of him, not paying him according to the contract, and then further issues with the official soundtrack, and then making it seem, publicly making it seem like he was the person at fault. So he responded with a massive document with, tons of evidence, lots of, email screenshots and whatever to back up his point. And Bethesda Games released their response was just to put out a tweet saying that this is a distortion of the truth, and these are incomplete facts, and that's basically all they said. And they say that they have evidence to show that he's making things up, but obviously we only have his screenshots, which I don't think it'd be really hard to to disprove those. But if Bethesda Games really does have the evidence that they claim, they should bring it forward, not just say that they have evidence that he's lying. But it attracted a lot of attention about to the kind of exploitive world of video game composing, and I think not for totally unjustified reasons. Some people prefer working in the TV and film industries because there tends to be a lot more shady business practices in the video game world, and that's also the reason why a lot of like the musicians unions, outside of Nashville, generally have blacklisted most video game studios. So musicians unions, you can't play, if you're a union musician, you can't play on scores for video games because of how exploitive a lot of these big video game companies are. This is probably the biggest, I don't know, public airing of the kind of potentially exploitive practices, shady practices in the much less regulated world of video game video game scoring and video game scoring contracts.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually forgot about that piece of news. The document is like really long. I think some of the evidence that I didn't read the entire thing because it actually is massive, but I think some of the evidence that is clearly not like made up or like doctored in any way, or like some of the I think he pointed out like like on certain files have like metadata attached to them. So like MP3 files, for example, might have like a what do you call it, like a I don't know if it says author or like composer. I don't know what the title is exactly, but it'll say like who made it, for example. I think he pointed that out that there was another guy who was working on tracks for the release of their official soundtrack that were released separately from the game, and that it wasn't him who did that stuff, which people had claimed before. So from the files, you could, on your own computer, you could just tell that yourself. But I guess, a ton of other stuff, screenshots, emails, I guess, are not really verifiable. I don't really know if he has, because I didn't read the whole thing. I don't really know if he has any other witnesses, for example. I guess that one other guy might corroborate what happened. But other than that, I think, as far as I read, it was just mostly him saying stuff, right? But, yeah, I mean, I would say it's a very bold move to put all that work into live wrestling that is easily falsifiable by the company. But then also that Bayonetta thing happened, so who knows? I don't really know at this point.
One thing I will say though, you'll be able to tell when the lawsuits fly. Probably if one party is like lying, very egregiously. The lawsuit will look a very specific type of way because the lawyers will recognize BS and they'll be like, okay, we've got to either run or hide.
Yeah. So that's the huge part of it. He has rejected all of their settlements because he feels like that the amount of money offered to him is one, it's not worth what he went through. And two, that it would be a betrayal of his own self to accept money and be quiet about truly abusive practices. So that's how he starts off his I don't know what you want to call it, article or something. But he can say all this because he has rejected settlements, all the settlement offers from Bethesda.
So that tells you that who thinks they're in a position of power, whether or not that is founded or not is a different question. But it sounds like he believes what he's saying, which, normally if you have cases like this and a settlement comes out, and the person just accepts some secret settlement with some secret amount of money behind it, sometimes it's a very low amount of money, but no one's allowed to disclose that amount of money, and the person's just trying to make the thing go away because their allegations weren't actually as crazy as they portrayed it to be. But if you're rejecting settlements now, it lends some sort of credibility, unless you're someone who it probably has some personality disorder. Otherwise you're probably, if you're a rational person, right, you are rejecting settlements as a sign that you probably are, at least you believe in what you're saying. So that's very interesting.
His camera's glitched out, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Let me just turn my camera off and turn it back on.
Okay. Sweet. In the meantime, we got 909 Crime in the Discord chat. Sub 909
Yeah, something I want to respond to. He said, it's back when I was talking about, I think China banning games. You said they banned Western games. I don't know what games they had banned. The article just said that they had banned 9 mobile games, I think, last month or something like that, and that was the general trend. And then this month, or sorry, September, it was 1 game, I think, and then the month before that, it was like 10 or something like that. That was the norm. And then it seemed that so September, I believe, was the month they were talking about as like the first month that they've seen increases in game sales for a long time. Lily, I don't know if you guys knew how restrictive gaming is in China. I did not realize, even like not a recent thing, right? It was like a pretty old thing that like it is rough out there for gamers. So yeah.
Is it like limit? I vaguely remember something about limited time allowed being spent, and like they can't use Steam and stuff like that.
So in terms of time, they actually increased the time. It used to be like 1.5 hours. No, sorry, they decreased it. It was like 1.5 hours a day, I think it used to be, and now it's 3 hours a week, and only at certain times. So it's this is for minors. I don't believe this applies to adults, but it's 3 hours per week. You can play on weekends, and you can play on Friday after some time, like 9 p.m. or something like that. I don't remember what it is, and on holidays. So yeah, those are the restrictions.
I will say, like, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, like, aside from time, there's also like obviously content things, right? So like, for example, I think there's anything that portrays. I think it might be anything that portrays history or something like that. I don't remember what it was. It was like something like that. Anything that portrays history is like banned. I think things that portray violence apparently are also banned, which just seems like a lot of things. But they're like de facto banned apparently. So I guess they don't have to necessarily say it's banned. It just is, right? But yeah.
Yeah, I will say, like, with most Chinese regulations, if you listen to people who, lived there or, grew up there, most regulations aren't enforced, like, on the daily like that. If they're not easily electronically enforced, via just like, at the ISP level or something like that, if it's not just like being auto-filtered, then it's not like, someone's counting your hours like that, I wouldn't imagine, at least. It's more like you're running the risk once you go past that 1.5 hours of giving someone a reason, to come down on you for whatever. So whether it could be your own parents, frankly.
I actually don't know if that's necessarily. I don't know if it's necessarily true, because I think I recall, this might be a more recent thing. Maybe I'm just making this up at this point. I don't know if I want to say this in case I'm wrong, but I thought it was like a relatively newer thing that it's like you need to attach your ID for certain games or something like that.
Well, see, that's the thing is
that might have been an adult thing though, not a kid's thing at that point.
Well, that's the thing with most Chinese regulations as well, is that they would like to automate everything. So, like, yeah, I mean, that sounds plausible that if they can figure out a way to monitor all your gaming activities and then sort of auto-police it, then they definitely would do that. It's just a matter of I guess, when in their minds they can acquire the technologies and surveillances necessary to do so. So,
right. I'm trying to read more on it, but there's really the Wikipedia doesn't give like very detailed things on like how it works, but yeah, I don't know if I made up the whole ID thing. Cause I'm like, let me look this up actually.
Yeah.
Oh no, it looks like it's actually real. Yeah, you need a real world Chinese ID for certain games. Certain companies require use of a bank card to play it. Okay, blah blah. But yeah, I don't know if it's all games. I don't know how this works, but yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Any other? Oh, actually, I was gonna. So sometimes, I've done this in the past when I haven't been paying attention to news. I just pulled up some random film news website and have fun with some of the titles. I'm not reading any of these right now, but reading the articles, any of the articles right now. But this one was funny to me. Why real life Squid Game recreations don't bother the original star? Is that a thing? Are people playing Squid Game? Is this a thing, internet?
Didn't Mr. Beast have a Squid Game thing? But obviously, with death not being the
I have no
the
idea.
penalty. I feel like I've heard of this before.
I feel like I don't occupy the right corners of the internet to know if this is a thing. Oh, man. I mean, I'm not sure why he should feel bad. It's like, I mean, you can't. There's a certain level of idiocy that you can't really fix. um, but yeah, that's. I thought that headline was funny. And yeah, nothing else terribly. Apparently, I haven't really missed much. Everything else is like just dry announcements of who's playing what in the next superhero something. That honestly, I feel like there's very little energy about in the wider discussion of media in general. So there you go. Sweet. All right, so shall we go on to our first segment?
Sure.
Awesome. And I'm going to be quick about it because I know Ben has to go, so... Oh, I am glitching out here. Okay, there we go. So yeah, if you've been listening to this segment in post, this is our new segment, and we'll be going on to our film segment where I'll be talking about just how much Adobe sucks. So, here we go.
Mixed Media Movies.
Oh, the layers weren't quite right. But hey, we're back. We're back to Mixed Media. This is Mixed Media... Mixed Media Films. Wow, I'm messing up everything today. It's okay. And yeah, today we're going to be talking about Adobe and my experiences with it recently. I'm a longtime Adobe user, and we've got a chat. Let's see. So Stephanie Costello says, "Were you just discussing film news?" Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't really know what's happened the past week terribly much, but I just read a funny headline. Did you see Tarantino's comment about Marvel? No. I would love to see Tarantino's comment about Marvel. Maybe I'll bring that up in one of the next segments while they're reacting to things, and then I'll give my thoughts later. But yes, I would love to hear what Tarantino says about anything. Okay, so yes. Basically, what happened is I finally got the time, organization, idea, and execution, which is hard to line up for the situation that I was in, to actually put out a YouTube video again on my company's channel, which you can check out at ariela.co/YouTube. That's AURIELA.co/YouTube, or you can just look up my company on YouTube. And it's a beautiful fall video. Highly recommend it from my own opinion. It seems I'm getting good reception for a lot of things. I'm obviously not 100% happy with it, as you shouldn't be. Can't really be 100% happy about anything that I put out. But as far as it goes, it got finished. But it got finished, I want to say, like 4 or 5 days. It was supposed to come out the day before Thanksgiving. It ends up coming out the Sunday night after Thanksgiving, which was yesterday. Yes, yesterday. And that was horrible. And it had nothing to do with mismanaging the time, although there probably was some of that, but maybe the worst that would have happened, if everything went smoothly, would be that the video would have gone out, that night, on that Wednesday night, or the latest, after coming back from Thanksgiving stuff, maybe the Saturday. The issue was almost entirely IT stuff. All the IT stuff that is involved in making videos. Yes, but okay, so why did I use Premiere to begin with? Well, one, it's because it's the first editing software I learned. I mean, so way back when I started out in film at all, doing animation and VFX stuff, just because it fascinated me. And there's a great guy called Andrew Kramer who runs what's it called again? Dang, I can't remember his channel name. But
Video Copilot.
Video Copilot. There you go. I haven't watched.
It's weird. I don't even know why I know that. I don't
know why you know that either.
In like years, probably. I've only seen it because of you seen it.
Yes, I would literally sit there and watch him go through tutorials about different effects, meteors coming from the sky, simple things like set extensions, all these really interesting concepts. And I was mesmerized with the idea that you could layer something in a piece of software and create a whole new world, that you could do animation. Started looking into motion graphics things, got into kinetic typography. It was a whole time. But that was my first sort of, dip into the Adobe world, and that was before the CC days. So if you remember, Adobe wasn't a subscription service forever. Back then, it was you pay one time for one piece of software, or they had bundles, right? So you'd either pay for After Effects or you'd pay for like the whole suite. But it was a suite for the year. So if it was like 2014, then or whatever, 2010 or whatever, you would pay the whole suite, and you would have that license forever. And that's how that worked before. So I don't remember what version I was using, but I was using After Effects, and that's it. And so I realized that you could edit video in After Effects essentially by sort of, it clearly isn't designed for that, but like you can just kind of cut clips and place them. It's really clunky. Don't do that. It just doesn't do you any favors in terms of workflow. But that was my first introduction into sort of the editing space. And then I thought naturally, okay, I should probably learn Premiere Pro as a dedicated editing software so that, I can do things that were coming out, which were dynamic linking. So dynamic linking around that time was just coming out, which is a technology that allows you to right-click on a few clips, send to After Effects, and whatever After Effects changes you do, VFX, graphics, whatever, they automatically repopulate back into Premiere. So you can have Premiere open, and you click on the place in the timeline, and after a bit of lag, you can see the result of your changes on your Premiere timeline. You can even play it back through, not smoothly mostly, but you can do that. And you can render it without having to do an extra render step, which is a huge deal from a professional workflow standpoint, because now you don't have the in-between step of rendering out your After Effects project, then pulling that into Premiere. Instead, now you can, just render your entire Premiere timeline, and the dynamic link magic will render out the frames for your After Effects project, probably through the After Effects engine headless. That's probably how it works. And spit out your final video. That's how that's the world I was in when I was picking out Premiere. Then went to college, and that's the editor of choice, pretty much, right? At that time, that's like peak Premiere. Like, Premiere was like in the news. Like, it's hard to remember this kind of stuff, but that's how it was actually. Like, Premiere was changing the game in like pretty much every way. It came at the same time that Final Cut Pro made a massive UI UX change to their software, changed the editing workflow entirely, and a lot of people hated that because it kind of forced you down a certain way of editing. And a lot of old timers were like, "No, I want freedom," and they went to Premiere. And then other people were like, "Actually, when you think about it, Premiere's pretty cheap," and they went to Premiere. And some people were like, "Well, there's some collaborative CC features, like Adobe Cloud is just coming out and stuff like that." Then CC comes out, Adobe CC, which is their subscription service, which, you're paying like $65 a month, forever. You never own the thing. Classic. And what they do to justify this to you is constantly integrate their software with each other better. So now it's not just After Effects and Premiere that work well together, it's Illustrator and After Effects. It's not just Illustrator and After Effects, eventually it becomes Photoshop and Illustrator, and Photoshop and After Effects, and Photoshop and Premiere, and the layers get imported separately. Wow, magic. And like everything is working in a very like cohesive way, in a way that is logical. Like, you have all these pieces of software that have a common design ethos. Let's work on integrating them to make one big experience, then we'll call that Adobe CC, and make people pay monthly. It's a good vision. It made sense. And despite the expense, it still elevated the entire platform. I will say for professional workflows, an expense of $65 a month is not going to be anything that you're going to bet an eye at. So if you are a studio and you've got, a couple editing workstations, you got the Adobe Suite, that might be the only thing you need, right? No plugins that you have to buy, no anything, because everything is just right there, right? That's the attraction. You've got Audition to do your audio, and back then there were a whole bunch of different software that doesn't exist today, like Prelude and I don't know what, I can't remember, like SpeedGrade, some other interesting pieces of software, Dreamweaver for creating HTML pages. So yes, it was an interesting landscape. And so, yeah, that's where I cut my teeth, is on Premiere. And so in college, just ended up diving deeper into Premiere because that was pretty much the up-and-coming, the editing software that was becoming the most common editing software in the industry. And by the time I left college, it definitely was the most common editing software in the entire industry. So a huge takeover from the Final Cut Pro, Avid sort of, professional class software crowd. Okay. Now, that will change, and we'll get to that. But I want to describe to you the project that I was making, and describe to you, and I'm going to compare it to a different project that I had made in the past. So, last year, maybe a year and a half ago, I worked on a pretty massive short film project with a director, and I ended up taking over the entire production pipeline. So, I was touching this thing. Basically, the only thing I wasn't involved with was on pre-production. So I was the DP, and I also was the colorist, and that's what we originally talked about. And then it turned into, I'm not just the colorist and the DP, I'm also the editor. I'm not just the editor, I'm also the sound engineer. It ballooned. I just ended up doing the entire post-production process by the end of it, which was quite the experience. It was a lot. That's for sure. But I did the whole thing in the Adobe Suite. So I would put that as the most complicated thing I've ever done through the Adobe Suite. So the core of the whole thing is going to be Premiere. As the editor, it's the cutting, it's the rough sound placement. Then everything gets dynamically linked to Audition for audio work. And then there's this awkward sort of thing of color, which was done in DaVinci Resolve, because DaVinci Resolve is the industry standard for color, and Lumetri, which is the Premiere equivalent, absolutely sucks. It's horrible. It's it'll get you by a little bit, but it's horrible. Oh, Nathan posted some meme, it looks like, or something in the chat. So I'm using Resolve for color, but everything else is Adobe Suite. Effects are being done in After Effects. Graphics are being done in After Effects. Titling is being done in Illustrator. Random things are being done in Photoshop. So the whole Adobe Suite is being engaged, practically, doing this project. And it was mostly okay. It's like, the conclusion I got there. It was mostly okay. Premiere functioned, relatively well. At that point, I actually had a less powerful setup overall, because I didn't have my new graphics card, which is a 3080 that I currently have. Back then I had a 1660, and I had a lot less storage, and I had to work around it a little bit more. But overall, the amount of footage I was dealing with was about like a terabyte and a half, or something like that, of footage, and I was working with a timeline that was about 20 minutes long, or something like that, to give you an idea of scale. So it really isn't something to bat an eye at. There's a lot of B-RAW footage in there. There's a lot of ProRes footage in there. And it dealt with the mixed frame rates, the mixed formats just fine. I did not use proxies, which a lot of people would be like, why the hell would you do? It worked fine. I didn't use proxies. And so there we go. Fast forward to now, I'm doing a YouTube video, which is not as complex, although there was more stuff. So the whole project was about 2 terabytes or something like that. That's because I emphasized the prettiness of a lot of the shots that I shot. Was shooting them all in B-RAW 4K. Some of them I was shooting 120 frames per second. and stuff like that. 60 frames per second, 4K. So these are much bigger files because I wanted the maximum room to do beautiful grading, etc. in Resolve. Now, if you don't know, Resolve has changed quite a bit over time. So Resolve started off in the industry as a dedicated DaVinci Resolve. The company's DaVinci. The software is Resolve. But the parent company is Blackmagic. So Blackmagic owns DaVinci. They bought them out I don't know, maybe a few decades ago. I don't know actually. So yeah, that was the idea for why I was shooting the way I was shooting. And what I was saying was Resolve. So Resolve was a dedicated color software. That being said, it was very GPU heavy. The whole thing was very GPU based, which makes sense if you're doing transforms on images. So you're going to build the whole thing upon that. And it had very basic cutting features just so that you could easily chop something out. So you might have a 10-second clip, but you actually only need to grade 5 and export 5 seconds of it. They allowed you to just truncate, the clip so that it was easier to handle. And, that was it. It had no other, interesting features. It was just any editing capabilities it had were features of convenience. And just so you can get to color grading and exporting. But a very powerful color grading piece of software and remains the industry standard today. So they've changed themselves over time to slowly become a full-fledged editor and way, way more than I thought that they would ever be. But yeah, I'll come back to that. So basically, my experience this time was absolutely the worst. And over the last 2 years, I've noticed a trend where Adobe prioritizes features over stability. It is mind-boggling that they do this. It's like having a glitchy game, and they just keep adding more DLC. And not actually fixing the core game. It's what are you doing? And with a game, that's one thing, but when you're a professional, this is your life. This is your livelihood is built on top of using the software and using it reliably. So for that one short film that I was doing, it caused some delay, but the delay was manageable. It was accounted for. It was expected, right? This time, it was catastrophic. Absolutely catastrophic. And here's what it was. I could not play back smoothly any video. And mind you, my system has gotten more powerful from when I could smoothly play back video before. Why is that? It's because the graphics support just went out the window. I have a 3080, and it has CUDA cores. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up. And those CUDA cores can be used to do tasks in Premiere to accelerate Premiere. You feel it when CUDA is on and you have a CUDA-enabled graphics card. My last graphics card also was CUDA-enabled, of course. So you turn it off and you turn it on, and there's actually a very palpable difference in the way that you feel the smoothness of your edit. You're able to play things back, and you're able to play back longer sections without interruption. Very important if you're editing. You can play things back at full resolution, including in my 1440p timeline. I could play it back just fine. However, for whatever reason, GPU support has been getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Up until now, where I had to turn off my CUDA acceleration, which I paid for 3080, and you're going to make me turn it off. That does not feel good. Can you imagine? I game, but that's not the reason I got the 3080. The reason I got it was to speed up my workflow, because that's very important to me. It's linked to my profession. And you're telling me that I have to turn off my 3080 for Premiere to not crash every 2 seconds, because that's what was happening. So I turned it off. And now it's not crashing every 2 seconds, but now every 10 minutes. which is absolutely horrendous. Now, this has gotten so bad. It's not just me, right? I looked this up, and everyone's having these problems with no solutions. And Adobe's offering no solutions. And it's been happening for the past 2 years, worse and worse. You have TikTok memes about how bad Premiere has gotten lately, about how terrible the support is, and they're not addressing it. And that is absolutely... Here's what happened to them. They went the cloud route, the CC route, the integration route. Then they saw the Instagrammer, the TikToker, and the non-complex YouTuber. And non-complex, that's not throwing shade, I just mean in terms of timelines and stuff like that, it's not as involved. And they said, that's probably a bigger market. We could suck all those people in for $65. Forget the movie studios. Forget those people. Forget the movie studios. Forget everyone we grabbed because other companies decided that they were going to change the way they did things. Forget all that. Instead, we're going to just focus on adding features that will appeal to small content creators. And those features would be things like templates, things like, it's all good. Like, I'm happy that they were developing new things because some of those ideas were good. And I ended up using a lot of those, like, auto captioning things, like very useful stuff. The problem, though, is that every time they added a major thing to any piece of software, the stability went down, which is what you expect, which is why you have betas, by the way. But, their stability went down and they just wouldn't care. They just were like, hey, we're adding, transcribing. Great. Now I don't care if transcribing something will crash Premiere at all. I don't care if the engine that does the transcribing starts running the moment I click the transcribe tab, which is something you can easily fix. I don't care. I'm gonna hog up your resources doing that. And it turned into a literally unusable for my workflow thing. I ended up having to render video from After Effects. They promised me dynamic linking. They don't even support that well anymore. So I had to render out stuff from After Effects, plop it back into Premiere, render that out so that I could play it back effectively in Audition. And then Audition would take 10 billion years copying files because that's the way its sort of design ethos is around conformed files, proxies, and all this stuff. It takes an hour to just pull out all the audio from the entire... The whole thing feels like I'm trying to wield a dinosaur. It's horrible. And I spent literally, and I will never forgive these people. I literally am emotionally affected by this. I will never forgive you, Adobe, for this. You stole dozens of hours of my life over this. Like, it's personal at this point. Like, it actually hurts. Like, I stayed up I'm pulling all-nighters trying to put out a YouTube video that I had well planned. That is a problem. That is a big problem. And then I ended up going into Resolve and saying, I wonder what if the grass is greener over here. Let me tell you, the grass is freaking neon in the Resolve world. It is a fantastic place. I won't get into too much because I have to end pretty much now. But
have you used the Fusion tab yet?
No, and that's actually the only thing that wasn't so intuitive that I could immediately do everything I needed to do.
I had looked it up, like how to use it and stuff like that. It seems it's a pretty cool system. It reminds me of it's like a procedural. I don't know what you call it exactly, but it reminds me of like Blender shader nodes in the way, or not, and even geometry nodes, the way you can sort of procedurally affect the composition. It's like non-destructive and stuff like that because it's just nodes, right? And it's just nice. But
yeah, it's a node-based VFX engine, which is pretty cool because I understand nodes and stuff from color grading because it's a node-based color grader as well, and so I already was familiar with sort of the idea, but probably need a little bit more practice. Probably, honestly, like 2 days of practice, and I'll know exactly how to use it because that's how intuitive everything is in Resolve. And here's the best part. It is stable as hell. Adobe's making all these excuses. Yeah, it's also free, by the way, sort of. It's free for almost everyone's use cases, except for mine. So I actually do need to pay for it, but I didn't pay for it because it comes with Blackmagic cameras. The full version comes with Blackmagic cameras. So I bought my Blackmagic. That $300, I considered that as a subtracting $300 from my camera price, and you should too, because the software is actually worth $300. It's a one-time payment. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But with Resolve, everything is so smooth, and there's no excuses. I can't stand the excuses. People literally make money off of your software. Your job is to be professional. Like we're not using iMovie. We're using a piece of software that is used to cut Netflix shows. And Netflix shows are having problems with your software. How do you do that? Like, how do you, like, I don't understand that, Adobe, at all. That's crazy. But anyway, so you just nixed all support for anyone who has any major need for fidelity.
I feel like this is really maybe not entirely an Adobe issue, more like a Photoshop issue, right? Because I've used Adobe software before. I never really had an issue with any of them. I mean, the one I've used most extensively is Illustrator. I've used that quite a bit, and it tends to just work. I don't really use it to its maximum capabilities. I don't use like all its features, or whatever. But what I do use, even like things that, like, for example, like they want to image trace something like that, right? And like, it's like a moment where I'm like, this is gonna crash because like it like freezes up for a moment or something like that. It's always fine. I don't know if Illustrator has. I can't recall it crashing on me, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened like once or twice. I can't remember, but at least it wasn't like a pattern where I'm like, I remember like, oh, this software crashes a lot, So maybe it's just a Photoshop specific thing,
Yeah. Well, so I will say, like, Illustrator is probably the most robust piece of
software. I said Photoshop specific thing. I meant to say Premiere specific thing, but yeah.
Yeah. Photoshop has actually gotten less stable for me as well. But the thing is, like, their excuse is like, well, there's so many new graphics cards coming out with so many new features that we have to take advantage of with so many blah, 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 blah. No, because Resolve can do it. So no, none of that's valid. Why can Resolve do it? Like, really, just answer that question. None of that's valid. Stop working on your features and do what Resolve is doing. And guess what? Resolve is GPU-centered, which I understand that Premiere being more legacy is going to put it at a disadvantage from this perspective. But, if you want to justify people using your CPU-bound piece of junk instead of using a beautiful GPU-centered piece of software that actually leverages a GPU properly, then you need to justify it with being a better piece of software overall. And you're just not.
99 Crime says the monopoly seems to sedate them.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the great part. I think this demonstrates what happens when you have actual competition in a space. Because they actually do have competition in this space. I would say they're probably like a soft creative monopoly. Just because their whole suite covers so much ground. Unlike, DaVinci doesn't have an answer to Illustrator or Photoshop, right? But it does have an answer to literally all the video pipeline. In one piece of software, there's not just a titler, it's a full-fledged competitive and usable alternative to After Effects. Like, in the same, I just click a tab, and it takes literally maybe 100 milliseconds for it to load that tab. And then I'm already in a full-fledged VFX engine. My audio is embarrassing in that. I know a lot of people said nice things about my video, and I appreciate them a lot. One thing I cannot forgive is the audio in that video, and I had to put it out that way because of what Audition did to me.
Was it intentional to have sometimes like the stereo be incredibly panned, or
no?
Yeah, because sometimes I don't know if this is like a thing. I couldn't tell if it was just me because I was like, okay, I guess it just left it like that. I was like, I don't know if it's just a me thing or it's a general person thing or something. But when I hear audio that is 100% on one side or the other, it makes me like really uncomfortable. I get a really weird feeling where the side that has no audio, it feels like there's something like in my ear. Something like that. So I actually had to go into the video setting and turn mono on, like force mono on, because I couldn't watch it because of the audio. It was very strange.
Yes,
So I'm glad that wasn't
I
intentional.
couldn't.
I was like, I would say it's like a very odd choice.
Once I got it into the audio into a usable state, I could not risk opening Audition again. That's how bad it was. The moment I got an export out of it, I had to use it. And then I tried to augment it the best I could in Resolve while trying to still meet my deadline because I can't post a fall video in the middle of winter. So, like this was horrible. And like I can't just express just how angry I am. It is 10 years I have an Adobe Suite, and this is the worst it's ever been. Worse than it was when I just started. That's horrendous. Everyone should switch to Resolve. It's way easier to learn than you think. I tried using Resolve like maybe 5 years ago for like some basic editing stuff just because I wanted to know, because some big people were putting out I switched to Resolve videos, and it was a little bit more clunky. They've changed everything now. It's
What's completely
the price usable
again? If you want to buy the full version.
The full version is $300, but my recommendation is just buy a Blackmagic camera instead.
How much is Premiere?
Premiere is, well, you have to buy it in the suite. Well, okay, the best deal is to buy it in the suite, but you can buy Premiere alone, I think, for like $30 a month. But the whole suite is $65, so it doesn't really make that much sense. Oh, I can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Yeah, my bad. I said regardless, like Resolve is like way cheaper in like any, like not even in the long run, in the short run, really. Because if you're gonna buy editing software, you're probably gonna be using it for more than a year.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's pretty minimal.
I don't understand how they're giving me free updates the rest of my life, with a one-time payment, and that business.
Well, they also have like the camera business supplementing that too, probably, right?
Yes, definitely. They want to pull people into the B-roll pipeline. That's what I think is motivating them to do it without any recurring payments, because B-roll is magical. But anyway, that's all I want to say about this topic. I'll probably, once I start, learning Resolve and stuff like that, I will come back to this and tell you just how, because I'm going to be, it's a part 1, part 2 situation with the video that I just dropped. So part 2 is going to come out hopefully within a week. So I'm going to do that entire process in Resolve, and eventually I will come back to you and tell you whether or not it was worth it. It kept up with the complexity of the project and whatnot. And if you have any ideas or comments about Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve, definitely put them down in the comments below. Tell me if I'm just going crazy, or maybe I've just got the one random setting that I was hunting for wrong, or something, that was just really off about my setup. But at this point, I'm looking to cancel my Adobe subscription, and maybe you should think about doing so too. So there you go.
Yikes, that's a lot of software. It's gone.
The only things, maybe I'll buy the Photoshop Illustrator package, which is like $15 a month, and everything else I'll just nuke.
Right, $50 a month. Okay,
does Resolve like how does Resolve handle audio though?
It has a beautiful audio engine called Fairlight.
If you pay, right? Isn't Fairlight the thing you have to pay for, right? It's one of them. I don't think that. I could be wrong, but I can look it up.
I think but it can't read without paying like something like anything over 48 kilohertz. So you have to pay for like certain formats to be read. But besides that, the audio editing is absolutely beautiful. It's very responsive and fast. I don't have a sound card in my system. No lag whatsoever. The visual aspects of the audio system are literally beautiful. Like, they actually like look good, but they also respond very well. So it makes editing audio really fast because you can see exactly the changes you're making to the waveform like immediately, which is very nice. Yeah. So yes, I say at least for now that it's better than the whole software Audition already. So
it says that if you purchase, you get Fairlight FX. I don't know if that's like synonymous with Fairlight or that's something else. But if you look up Fairlight FX, you just get Fairlight. I don't know what the FX part is about. Yeah.
And to Stephanie Costello in the chat, you can check out my YouTube video on moving to Mount Carmel at ariella.co/Mount Carmel. I'll put the link in the chat right now so you can have it. But for those who are listening, that's where you can go find it, or you can just search Ariella on YouTube and it'll come right up. I think I'm ranked #1 for anything related to Mount Carmel immediately, so that's pretty cool. um, yeah, that's all I have to say. So we've got to rush and do some some arguing with Reddit. So all right, and oh no, where is the transition? There it is. And here we go.
Mixed media music.
All right, we're gonna keep this quick. So welcome to Mixed Media Music. For today, we have our Arguing with Reddit section. My name is Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer. And again, just in interest of time, I'll be responding to some hot takes from the internet that my co-hosts have found for me, and one which I've pulled for myself. The other ones I have not seen, so you get my live and hopefully quick thoughts on.
Sweet. I'll start with your own so that you can just immediately start talking about it while I pull it up.
Yeah, sure. So this is a video. I think, a couple of weeks ago, I think one of his Arguing with Reddit sections segments, I also had a video from the same channel. And so this is a video from Inside the Score, and I think I said last time that I used to like this channel, and their quality has really deteriorated over the past few years, more like I don't know, maybe year and a half or so. And this is a video on ostensibly, the kind of clickbaity title, trying to let us know that that our the host of this, I don't know his name, thinks that the greatest and most influential Russian composer is not Tchaikovsky. That's the shocker. That's not Tchaikovsky, apparently, and is in fact Rimsky-Korsakov. Okay, so first, I'm not sure why we should be shocked, about Tchaikovsky not being the most influential Russian composer. All right, second, I am, this really gets into the whole idea, and I commented on this on the video. But he makes all these points about how Rimsky-Korsakov is the most talented member of the so-called Mighty Five, and how he's ultimately a greater composer than all these other people. And how did I really wonder. Now, don't get me wrong, because I love Rimsky-Korsakov, one of my absolute favorite composers. But I really wonder how, whether it's a good thing on a channel that has a pretty large following and a growing following, that's about introducing people who don't know anything about classical music, introducing classical music to them. I really wonder whether it's a good idea to be throwing around these terms and just saying, that he's more talented and than other composers, his contemporaries, and he's none of the great composers stayed in Russia after. He says none of the great composers other than Shostakovich stayed in Russia after the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. How are we defining greatness, right? I can think of tons of fantastic composers in the Soviet Union not named Shostakovich. How are we defining talent? Right? I really, I love a lot of music of the Five, and just because they didn't necessarily write as much music as Rimsky-Korsakov, is that an indicator of talent, or what is how do you measure talent for composition? Right? I don't know how you do that. I think he's also neglecting the importance of Balakirev as kind of the quote-unquote leader of the Mighty Five. Because pretty much a lot of the most important works of Rimsky-Korsakov in the 1880s, that era roughly, they're kind of built off of ideas of Balakirev's. That Balakirev starts writing them first, and then he says, I'm not going to finish this piece. but Rimsky-Korsakov, maybe you want to take some of these musical ideas, and Rimsky-Korsakov goes and does that, and then Balakirev, finishes a piece like a decade later, right? And nobody knows the Balakirev piece, but we all know the Rimsky-Korsakov piece. So I think we're underselling, and history does this too, underselling Balakirev. Yes, I also find it really curious that you give one example of, well, I guess he gives two, but one named example of a piece by Rimsky-Korsakov that he analyzes and talks about how it demonstrates his, talent, which is his Second Symphony, which is a piece. It's such a curious choice of piece. It's not a very well-known piece at all. I think it's a fine piece, but there are so many other pieces one could choose that I think are better examples of what he did than Second Symphony on tar. So yeah, I kind of appreciate the general point of this channel, but a lot of the videos on Inside the Score recently kind of frustrate me a little bit. I don't know. I think we're kind of doing a disservice to some to the people who are there to learn about classical music who don't, the whole point is people, you don't need an education, a conservatory education to know about classical music and appreciate it. I think that's great. But I think we do a bit of a disservice if we're just going to throw around not, kind of worthless terms like, well, he's the most talented composer of his generation, and no great composer other than Shostakovich remained in the Soviet Union, which is also a silly statement because Shostakovich, he was 11, and or like 12 by a couple of days when the Bolshevik Revolution took place. All right, so he wasn't going anywhere. All right, so of course he stayed. Anyway. That's my thoughts on the video.
Nice. All right, continue with the speed round. This next one is, well, on behalf of me, really from producer wife, and I don't really know what it is, so I guess we'll find out right now. Let's pull it up correctly. There it is. So it says, "Wonderful Christmas Time" is a top tier Christmas song. I loved Paul McCartney since I loved Paul McCartney since I've been 5 years old. Blah 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 blah. Okay, there you go.
I mean, it's fine if you like pop, and like poppy, Christmas songs. If that's not your thing, then you're probably not going to like it. If you do, then I think it's fine. It's not my favorite. It's not the kind of Christmas music that I generally like. If I want something poppy, I put on the Beach Boys Christmas CD, which is very different. But that's if I want something that's more pop music. That's for Christmas. That's what I listen to, not Paul McCartney. But I think it's a fine song if that's the kind of stuff that you like.
Sweet. So there's that quick opinion. I actually find that song to be extremely repetitive, and sometimes it hurts.
It is, but I mean, I think that's part of the charm of it.
Yeah, no, I can take it in limited doses. It's fun in limited doses.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna. If I'm walking through, I was in Target earlier today, and if they put that on, which they didn't have it on, but I can imagine it being on walking through Target. I'm not going to complain to management if that's playing.
Yeah.
While I'm walking through Target.
Yeah. Cool. All right, this one's from Nathan. If you want to explain.
Yeah. So the title is "Subscription Services Are Awesome" from r/music production. So the general summary is that the poster is saying that subscriptions aren't so bad. On one hand, they solve the issue of when you go, if you want to outright buy something digitally, it might cost a lot more money. So in his case, he says a lot of people can't afford thousands and a lump sum for a plugin. And he references the Slate Digital subscription, where you only pay $10 a month for a whole bunch of presets for a synth, free sample packs. Well, not okay. I don't know if it's free sample packs; they're not free, but sample packs and access to their audio production courses. It also combats piracy because all the times either you have to have connection to the internet to use like all the stuff or whatever. So some sort of DRM is able to be put in place with that kind of stuff. And his assessment is that it's a net positive, but That being said, there are cases where it goes too far, and he brings up an example of Kyle Beats' $10 per month synth, which he believes is way too much for a single synth plugin.
I think they're really well. They're a very popular way to get started with things like Spitfire Audio, and like I think Spitfire Labs, things like that. That you can get a lot of breadth and a lot of coverage of basics. And at a relatively cheap price. And when you need something a little bit more robust, you're not tied to these these services and their fees forever. So a lot of young composers, like people starting out, really rely on them. Ultimately. I don't think that it's the kind of. I don't think a lot of the really big composers, big time composers, are using them. They're using mostly samples that they develop themselves, and some very curated things from real full paid libraries, paid all at once. But I think especially if you're getting started out and you want a lot that will work pretty well, and you just want to experiment, and you don't know whether you want a long-term commitment. I think they're a pretty good option.
Yeah, I would agree. I think one thing is kind of surprising is how many things. Well, for example, you mentioned Spitfire Audio. It's kind of surprising how many things there are just for free that are pretty quality. Because I know, I know a lot of the lab stuff is free, and I've used it before. And I wouldn't necessarily even be opposed to paying a subscription for them. Although I would definitely much rather buy it outright, assuming a reasonable price, of course. Yeah. Although, okay, not sponsored, but just so you guys know, Spitfire Audio is, by the way, having a crazy Black Friday sale. If anyone wants to pick anything up to purchase, but yeah. I
will throw out that Spitfire will not. I mean, the company to some extent, but at kind of residually. But the creator has come under a lot of fire this year for some of his tweets. So there's actually been a number of people who have decided, that they're done with Spitfire, despite its amazing quality. Because they can't support the creator any longer. So
I don't know what he said, but ignore what I said.
You can look it up for yourself if you're interested and if you really care about the personal views of the head of the company. I don't know whether that matters to you or not, but it was something that was in the news quite a bit over the summer.
Okay.
Cool. All right, we got it. We got it all done in time. I'm so happy. So there you go. That is Ben on Arguing with Reddit. If you want to submit your hot takes, by the way, for future shows, if you want to let Ben know whether he's wrong or not, you got to join our Discord, which is in the description, and Ben will be there if you tag him, and can have good conversations. We've had good conversations on the Discord before. Paragraphs sent back and forth, so that's cool.
Quick, the guy who made the tweets is no longer at the company, apparently. If it's the co-founder, Christian Henson, apparently he was let go in September. So
okay,
it's like $1,000 off of some thing. So that's what I saw. I was like, oh, that's crazy.
Okay, so I would imagine that he stepped down due to the controversy.
It seems so. Well, it's just temporarily let go. So actually, I don't know what that means.
Well, it was probably obvious, but he was becoming a drag on the brand name.
Yeah.
By association. So.
Sweet.
Anyway, I am going to head out. But thank you for watching this segment, and if you're watching live, thank you for watching the entirety of the show. So have a good night.
Good night, Ben.
Night.
All right. let's go back to our other layout, and also though I'll get rid of frozen bed in a moment. Let's see here. Let's put Nathan in the hot seat.
Nice.
There we go, and let's remove Ben. Now, in the meantime, I actually looked up what was posted in the chat about Tarantino, and I actually kind of want to read through the whole quote because there's actually a lot here, and it's very interesting. Let me get Ben off. There we go. Oh wait, that was the wrong window. Let's see here. And there we go. Okay. So yeah, let me pull this off. But basically, it's a long quote. I don't know what the context of him giving these comments are, but I just want to read through them real quick. So it says, I don't love them, which refers to Marvel movies. No, I don't. I don't hate them, but I don't love them. And you gotta imagine a Tarantino. It's hard not to imagine a Tarantino voice when you read Tarantino quote, because he talks in a very particular manner. I mean, look, I used to collect Marvel comics like crazy when I was a kid. There's an aspect that if these movies were coming out when I was in my 20s, I would totally be expletive happy and totally love them. But they wouldn't be the only movies being made. They would be those movies among other movies. I'm almost 60, so I'm not quite as excited about them. My only axe to grind is they're the only things that seem to be made. And they're the only things that seem to generate any kind of excitement amongst a fan base, or even for the studio making them. So it's just the fact that they are the entire representation of this era of movies right now. There's not really much room for anything else. That's my problem. It's a problem of representation. Part of the Marvelization of Hollywood is you have all these actors who have become film famous playing these characters. But they're not movie stars, right? Captain America is the star. Thor is the star. I'm not the first person to say that. I think that's been said a zillion times. But it's these franchise characters that become a star. Back in 2005, if an actor stars in a movie that does as good as the Marvel movies do, then that guy's an absolute star. It means people dig him or her and they like them and want to see them and stuff. Sandra Bullock is in Speed, and everyone thought she's amazing in it. Everyone fell in love with her. They were excited by Sandra Bullock and wanted to see her in something else. That's not the case now. We want to see that guy keep playing Wolverine or whatever. So I'm sure there's more than that. But the controversy seems to come from, or the newsworthy piece of this seems to come from him sort of dissing actors. Like the actor portion is what set people off.
I see.
Oh, and Stephanie Costell in the chat says, and then there was a rebuttal by an actor in one of the Marvel movies. Yeah, I'll have to check that out later.
Was.
But I'll briefly say that, hot take, I kind of agree with everything he says. Except for, like, the only thing I have a gripe with is actually in the actor thing. He says that people watch them for the character. I don't think that's entirely true. Like, if we think of, Chris Hemsworth or, what's the other Chris's name? Captain America. Chris Evans. Yes.
Right.
Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, they've been in other things that they've brought definitely people to the theater to watch. I think the greater issue is the thing he says before all of the actor stuff. Like, like everything before that is so spot on. I don't even know what to, like, it's literally just ripped out of my head, it feels like. But, you know, I listen, I'm not offended by Marvel movies either. Like, they're just kind of whatever. But, and I'd probably enjoy them once in a while to just, like, shovel popcorn in my face and have fun with friends and enjoy people who are really happy with the lore being portrayed on screen and whatever, if they weren't the only thing being put on screen. Like, you know, if there was proper competition and Disney didn't own everything, then I would probably have a lot less to say about Marvel. But in terms of the actors, like, I mean, they're of varying quality. Like, Chris Hemsworth is a good actor, actually. Chris Evans is a good actor, actually, in my opinion. Trying to think of others who are really talented. Chris Pratt. Wow, all the Chris's. Chris Pratt is a very good entertainer, and they've been in other things that prove that. So I'm not going to take that away from them, and I don't know if that's even really what he means entirely. I think what he's trying to point out is that everything is a commodity now. He's just trying to point out that like that movies have become just a commodity. Like the number one issue is whether or not you can, drag someone in who has committed their entire life to this universe for another year more, right? Like it's just a commodity that you're selling them. That's all. It really isn't any more artistic or valuable than just being another thing to string people along. And they do that the worst with Marvel, I think. I think they're a little bit better with Star Wars, but the commodification of Star Wars is pretty extreme as well. So, that's what I think he's getting at, is like, like if you think about his era of films, if you think about what's his face, Samuel L. Jackson, right, in Pulp Fiction, like there's no part of your fanship of Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction that has anything to do with the character, right? Like ultimately the acting feels like Samuel L. Jackson. Like it's like he creates a legend of an actor more than he does create an image of the representation of a hero, or in that case of that movie, that particular character. It's much more personal to the actor, the era of films that he comes from. And I think that has to do with craft as well. Like, people minded craft a lot more. That's probably a hot take as well, but I stand by that. People minded craft a lot more not too long ago. So, when people see something, and even if they can't articulate why, but they see something fantastic, they want to follow that person into other things and see how their career goes. They get invested. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. But Tarantino, he's a cool dude. Anyway, now we should go on to AWR gaming. So you want to take it away, Nathan? Oh wait, did I transition already?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, here we go.
Mixed Media Gaming.
Welcome back to the Mixed Media Podcast. This is the gaming segment. I'm arguing with Reddit, where I'll talk about some potentially controversial posts on Reddit about gaming. I'll respond to them. I'll give my take. There should be 3 of them this time. One of them I've seen myself already, and I already have an idea of how I'm going to respond to it. The other 2, my co-hosts have picked for me, and I'm not really sure what they say, so you get my live reaction. One of our co-hosts today, Ben, is absent at the moment. He was here earlier during his music argument with Reddit segment and during Irving's topic segment, so we missed those. And you're not watching live right now. Go back and watch those.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's get started.
Let's do the one that Ben found for you. So I'll pull it up and I'll read it. If I can do this smoothly. It seems as though this.
If on Skype it's possible to make someone full screen. You know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea. I've never.
Because the video preview is always cropped out and stuff. But anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So here is the thing from Ben. So it says Blizzard should stop making video games and should start doing shows or movies. Oh, okay.
Wait,
that took a turn. I thought this was
the first part. I was like, the first part was already kind of spicy, and the second part I was like, wait, I did really not expect this.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be some shade at Blizzard, but it's actually a compliment, I think. It says, while they have had some fun games at the end of the day, it's nobody's favorite game. Oh, they are kind of dissing their games. This is an interesting one. This is actually pretty interesting. All right, you take it away.
Specifically, unless it was Overwatch when I was 12, it says that's a favorite game. Really? No one's favorite game? But there's a lot of StarCraft people, right? Surely. I know it's not necessarily the biggest thing, the biggest talk of the town. I'm sure there are pretty big StarCraft fans. So I mean, at least in that regard, they're certainly people who love their games. Did you explain why? Is he going to say like good storytelling or something like that? That's why they should make like shows.
Yeah, it says the characters are well done.
I recently started binging the Overwatch character introduction Blizzard posts. Okay, I don't know how much this translates to like a show or a movie. Like that's like world building, right? But like that's like one minuscule piece of a gigantic puzzle of a movie or of a show, right? I mean, if we're ignoring the entire like logistical like idea of converting a bunch of programmers into a bunch of like movie makers, right? And ignore that part, and you just say like, yeah, somehow like you just have a team already, and you have like the key players from Blizzard who are making the stories and stuff like that. Like, who says they can write, for example? I don't know what the Blizzard posts contain. Maybe they contain like some like writing, like some like dialogue or something. I don't know. But I'm sure they're not like even show length, right? Like isolated little things is my guess. The characters are also well written. Oh, never mind, I am wrong. Okay, so they do have some writing in them, and the animation is insane too. I think if they did a show, it would really good because of how shown the character is for just a video game. Okay. As for animation, I think something that's interesting is a lot of times these companies will spend a really large amount on promotional videos like this that are not really economical to do for like a whole Netflix series, for example, or like a TV show. I don't know why I said Netflix, but a TV show of some sort, or a movie. A good example, if you look at the old Star Wars: The Old Republic trailers, they are to this day it's probably, I consider it with the Battlefield. It's like this category in my mind of like technologically incredible things that happen in the video game industry, and there are two for graphics. It's Battlefield 3 because it just looks really good for the time, right? And there's the Star Wars: The Old Republic trailers, which also look absolutely incredible. Now the game looks like way worse, like incredibly worse. But I don't think I've ever seen an animated TV show look like that trailer. That trailer came out a long time ago. I don't know when it was, but it was long enough ago where the graphics of the game are not like, they're clearly not modern, but it looks crazy good. But the thing is, like, I was reading, it's like, why don't we see shows with animations like this, right? Like of this trailer. That's like a thing that people will say in like the comments of the video of the trailer and stuff like that. It's like, we need shows like this. Like this is incredible, right? It's like, I don't think it's actually economical to do this, to keep doing this. It's like a one-off thing that generates some hype. I think they made there's like 3 videos, I think. So it's an isolated thing, it generates hype, and then after that you're done, right? And you get all the sales. I think I don't think you can keep doing that, and hopefully your recurring views are enough on your TV show, or it depends on the movie, I guess. But even like to do like, because those trailers are kind of short, right? They're a couple minutes really. A whole movie, it could be like 2 hours. The price is gonna, like now you're talking about like 60 times the price, or 60 times the length, which I don't know what the scaling would be like. Probably, well, it's probably gonna be more efficient than 60 times in some regard, right? But also, for example, like buying software, you still need the software now, right? Things like, I don't know, probably when you have a longer task, you probably have a lot of new resources you need to manage the longer task, and so there's like some efficiency loss there as well. So I don't really know what it'd be like, but probably talking about like many times the cost of doing it. So I don't really know, like it's not really like that's just for the animation thing. But yeah, I figure I don't know what the animations of the Blizzard promotional videos that this person's looking at look like, but it's very possible that it's just not economical to keep doing that for any amount of time. But yeah, I don't know. I think maybe Blizzard should not do that. It seems like a pretty radical change. I don't know if they're ready for that at the moment. So yeah.
Sweet. All right. How about we do yours next?
Sure. So mine comes from r/gaming design. Title is New Type of Physical Controller Could Change the Gaming Industry. Right. So the post is talking about how there hasn't really been any innovation in peripherals or specifically for input peripherals for video games. So you have the good old keyboard and mice. On consoles, you have the Xbox / PlayStation / Steam controller. You have the Nintendo Joy-Cons, which I guess has been a kind of recent innovation whenever the Switch came out, which is pretty cool. You have VR, which is still evolving, but relatively speaking, it's probably stayed in terms of like the input methods and the mainstream VR headsets have stayed pretty much the same for a while. And then you have less popular controllers such as joysticks for flight simulators and steering wheels for racing games. I was saying that if you can get some cool innovation, it would be nice. They mentioned the touchscreen added to the PlayStation controller, stuff like that. And yeah, so there is definitely innovation within like controllers, even if it's slow. Like the introduction of like, talking about like a long time ago, introduction of like, for example, like this is technically not really an input thing, but like headphone jacks into console controllers. You have Nintendo with the whole Joy-Con idea, which is pretty good, honestly. The idea that you can have a big controller that's really comfortable, or you get two small ones to play with your friend. I don't know who figured that out. That is genius. I've used it myself, and I realize that is a very genius idea. But one area I want to focus on specifically that has been lacking innovation is in PC gaming. Really, that means keyboard and mice. Obviously, you can use like an Xbox controller with a PC. But I mean, with the keyboard and mice, there are gaming mice. And what that essentially has meant is like, okay, a more ergonomic mouse, hopefully. Sometimes it's not really even ergonomic. And then like more buttons. And maybe some RGB. Like that is innovation that's come, right? And like, that makes a lot of sense, right? More buttons make sense. Relieve stress from keyboard actions and make things easier. But the keyboard is the exact same as it was. I don't know, whenever the keyboard came out, the modern keyboard came out, it's been the same thing pretty much. Like, I don't know, I guess maybe, now you have mesh keyboards. Wow, amazing, right? These are not like gaming things though, right? There have been things like RGB lighting to show like keys of certain games and stuff like that. But in general, like the layout and stuff like that, it's all the same. This kind of makes sense, right? Because the purpose of keyboard is not primarily for gaming. The purpose of keyboard is for typing. So you have this thing where you can't really like turn a keyboard into a true like purely gaming input peripheral, because then you're gonna ruin all the advantages you get for typing and stuff like that. But I would guess that people would actually buy a separate keyboard-like device that is optimized for gaming, that have alongside the keyboard they just plug into the computer via some USB or something like that, right? Like you would a normal keyboard, I guess. And one thing I noticed that's kind of like unoptimal with the normal keyboards is that in most games your fingers are on WASD, right? For a lot of games, and the keys around them, so like Q, E, F, R, assuming it's a QWERTY keyboard, those are like your important keys. And the issue is that actually the WASD is kind of fine, right? But the keys around them are kind of fat, which means that if I want to press G, for example, it's a little bit far away, but it's possible. It's kind of uncomfortable in certain situations, in certain games specifically. Like, for example, G might be commonly in an FPS. Yeah, I was saying an FPS is a grenade button. But when you want to press G, you literally cannot move right for some period of time when you're pressing G. And if you want to extend past that, like H is where you get to the territory of like, this is not really possible at this point to comfortably do if you need to use WASD all the while. It doesn't matter for certain games where, like, for example, like a strategy game, like a grand strategy game, where you're kind of moving around the map with WASD or whatever, right? It's like just pick it up and press H or whatever. Not really a big deal. But because they're so fat, right? Like, it actually becomes a problem for a lot of scenarios to do that kind of stuff. So it makes sense to have like smaller surrounding keys and stuff like that, or maybe radial keys, because the keys are in a semi-grid like fashion, right? It makes a lot of sense to have like radial keys, and that probably maximize the amount of buttons you can get. You want to resort to things like pressing 1 through 9 for items and stuff like that, which is pretty bad. And that's pretty much the ideas I've had. I'm sure you can get people to buy it if people buy things like steering wheels, which is fairly niche, or things like MMO mice with like 1,000 buttons on them. It'd probably be actually a lot simpler to have the buttons on the keyboard. It's easier to press keyboard buttons than mouse buttons if they're like that small. Some of them have like really small buttons to be able to fit everything.
I've seen some new like hybrid like one-handed keyboard things that look like they're interesting for gaming purposes. Do you know what I'm talking about?
We're talking about the keyboards that like split in half.
Some of them do that, but some of them are actually just one like left hand like keyboard with like a hand rest, and it like has like a thumb wheel or something interesting, or maybe a few other buttons on the side. Um,
Oh, I think I saw it recently, right? Like I think you're referring to the thing where this might be different, but like it's like one hand on the keyboard, and you have like your thumb would like use like some sort of like a joystick to modify what keys outputted by the key press.
I have no idea what the ultimate like use. I've seen it visually. I don't know how they actually work.
Okay, I don't know. I've seen like a keyboard, right, where it's like one-handed, and it's gonna. It's not something you could just use without learning. But it's like one-handed, and each key is mapped to instead of like just like Q, right? It's like 4 different letters, for example, and your thumb would have like a D-pad essentially that would modify what keys outputted, and that way you maximize the amount of keys you can do with one hand. And I think it's being advertised as being able to type really fast, but not for gaming, right? Just being able to type super fast because less finger motion, right? Your fingers will stay on the same key more often and stuff like that. Against really high speeds, but obviously the issue is you got to learn that, and everyone's like built to learn like the QWERTY keyboard grid system, So yeah,
Interesting. Cool. All right. So this next one is from Producer Wife, and I don't know what it is. So let's find out. Let's see. And here it is. So it says, video games have surpassed the point of significant visual improvement and mostly just look all the same. Apart from different art styles, the 9th generation of consoles, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series 5X, Nintendo Switch, look basically no different from each other, and the advancements from the 8th generation are not significant. And goes on from there.
I was grading at the beginning. I agree with like 99% of that. Yeah, I said this before with like the technological improvements, like graphics before. I think, yeah, it was like it's definitely been a slowdown. It's not the same as like 2010. I feel like 2010 and a little before that was probably like the biggest change, and that's when we sort of entered like I guess I don't even call it like the modern era, I guess, where things sort of really slow down. And it's I wouldn't say it's all the same because it's clear that some studios put more effort than other studios. Aside from style, like simple like technological fidelity, graphical fidelity. Probably a lot of that has to do with like developing technology, right? Because a lot of them use their own custom engines and whatnot, and that stuff takes time. So it's not like necessarily due to lack of effort, but someone might have figured, hey, it's not really that important to allocate resources to this giant project to look, a little bit better or whatever. But yeah, I wouldn't say they're all the same aside from style. I definitely wouldn't compare like the Switch though. That's it's definitely with Nintendo games is definitely a clear difference in graphical fidelity. I'm not saying it's bad. The style tends to be quite good actually.
They double the polygon count every 5 years. That's the name.
Wow,
of it.
From 2 to 4, incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
They're probably economic pressures, right? Also, like, I mean, like, there's diminishing returns in terms of technologies, and then to leverage the diminishing return technologies, you have to have exponentially more expensive hardware. Isn't that, like, part of the problem?
Who has the consumer who's buying it, or the
consumer?
Studio?
Yeah, the consumer.
That is true. It's kind of interesting, yeah, because you see like this like situation of like a point where like the hardware is just getting too good in a way, where it's like, I mean, and then they're getting like really expensive, right? It's like, who's buying these things? Because oftentimes you can just play whatever you want anyways, right? With like something that's not of the highest tier. So yeah, I guess it might not be much pressure to make anything look better that much, or maybe it's just simply that like it's just not. It's like the diminishing return is not worth it at this point. Or maybe there's like some I'm sure there's some studio researching something to make the next great graphical engine, but maybe they're just stuck at a stone wall at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you look
but
at
the interesting is
okay.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say you see like random things like Teardown using its voxel based graphics engine, and because interestingly enough, you have I don't know if I mentioned this before, but voxel based rendering has really high performance with ray tracing, unlike traditional rasterized triangle based rendering. So you can have things like Teardown where you don't need like a hardware acceleration on ray tracing. You can do it with like a graphics card that doesn't have ray tracing cores on it, and have like play with reasonable speeds and 60 FPS and above because they use the voxel engine. That's kind of cool. It's just kind of a random cool thing, right? But those things don't happen that often, and they're not like probably not the kind of graphical fidelity Torch is talking about.
Yeah, I mean the first thought that comes to mind is like we already have real-time level insane graphic ability. We already have it. It's in Unreal Engine. You look at what people are doing with Unreal for like real-time VFX. It's pretty nuts. However, to run that thing, you can't just use your basement computer. You need something that like literally less than 1%. Not even like it's probably like 0.05% of gamers have in terms of a system to run that. So it's like the economic pressure against continuing to develop is pretty high, I think, in a way that would be at least hardware intensive. Style and other things are different.
According to the Steam hardware survey, it's actually like for example, the amount of people with a 3000 series card, which all have ray tracing cores, I'm pretty sure. So 1.34% of people have a 3050 alone, which surprises me. 1.44 with 3080, and then from there it's like 0.91 with the 3070 Ti, and then from there it just decreases a lot.
That's actually
that was
what I thought.
I'm actually looking at June numbers. I wasn't even looking at the most recent numbers. Although it's declined, the 3050 population declined from last month to this month. So I'm not really sure what's up with that. But yeah, the most rapidly increasing. Oh yeah, the most rapidly increasing is the 3060. The 3060 is at 5.47%.
Wow.
How's that correct? Wait.
Well, okay, so I mean that's actually, it's still not a lot in the grand scheme of like, did this graphics card capture the market?
That's 1 out of every 20. That's like a targetable amount of people. You know what I'm saying?
That's not. Oh, that is 1 out of every 20. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, the thing is, a lot of people didn't buy 2000 series, right? Like at all.
Maybe it might be like
Like I think if I remember correctly, and I might be wrong, remembering correctly, it's either the 2080 Ti or the 2060 Ti was like the clear like deal. Like there's like one card.
Yeah. So the 2060 is the second most used card on Steam.
Okay.
6.1%.
The rest of it like just didn't make much sense. Like Yeah,
the next 2000 series is like. It is far down the list. It is like 1, 2, 3, 4. Why don't they have numbers? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. It's 18th. And there are plenty of thousands and 3000s in between.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure 1080 Ti is probably one of the most common cards.
I thought it would be. Where is the 1080 Ti? Is it being replaced? Is it being phased out finally? Because it's not even like it's lower.
Oh wow.
I thought the 1080 Ti was like
they all became the thing, 3060s, I guess, or something.
The 1080 Ti is 0.69%.
Wow. Okay, my concept of what cards people are using is like completely whacked out.
So here, I'll give you the top 5. The top 5. By the way, AMD is like thoroughly down on the list. By the way,
yeah.
The top cards are 1060, 2060, 1650, 3060, and 1050 Ti. Those are the top 5.
1050 Ti? That is
Yeah,
so.
these numbers seem very out of whack because the next one is the 3060 laptop GPU. I don't really know. I'm very confused. Is there like some odd bias as to who, like, because the survey, you have to opt into the survey. Is some odd bias on like who does these surveys?
Maybe because this may a 1050 Ti is like that's like probably console like level graphics, last gen,
Right.
So
Yeah, like, for example, I'm looking it up, right? And apparently AMD has a 26% market share on GPUs, but on Steam, obviously, the market share of like entire people is not going to be representative of the market share on Steam. But on Steam, it's 13.3%, so it's like 13.1 percent, so it's like half. I don't know if that's like I don't know statisticians. I don't know if that's like a that's worrying or like that's a normal thing. I don't know.
I have no idea. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. A lot of people, I mean, more people have money, I guess, than I thought. Because these things are expensive.
Yeah. It might be that,
Excuse me.
I don't know. I don't know how to explain this, honestly. The situation.
Yeah. Sweet. All right, wait.
Hey, AMD's actually been losing ground recently. Interesting. Sorry, I was looking at the graph.
Yeah. Before we end this discussion, I want to read the meme that you posted because I was holding in laughter before.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It says this is about Photoshop.
Let me give some context. So basically, this program someone wrote, and in one of the files they wrote a little comment which you can do in programming. It's just like a note, right? And it's specifically talking about the Photoshop save file, which is called the PSD file. So yeah, that's the context. And he wrote this whole little thing in his. Note that comments in programming are gonna be usually like one line of like this is what this does. But yeah, you can go ahead and read it.
At this point, I'd like to take a moment to speak to you about the Adobe PSD format. PSD is not a good format. PSD is not even a bad format. PSD is an abysmal... Oh, wait, no, I skipped it. Sorry. Calling it such would be an insult to the other bad formats. Oh, boy. Such as PCX or JPEG. No, PSD is an abysmal format. Having worked on this code for several weeks now, my hate for PSD has grown to a raging fire that burns within the fierce passion of a million suns. Yeah, I don't know if I should read this whole thing, but there's the link to it is in the chat. But I was cracking up because I feel like I could, as someone who has spent a lot of time programming, I feel the rage. When something's just so stupid, you're like, why? Who made this thing, and why is it still like this? And no one decided to change it. I don't know what the particular PSD issues are, but yeah.
Apparently with the byte alignment, which sounds scary enough, so I don't really want to think about it.
I mean, I saw also he said something about it doing two things in different places at the same time.
Yeah.
And honestly, I believe it because Adobe seems to be trash. I don't know what the heck they're doing, but their software engineers get paid a lot of money, though. I will say that. Clearly to do nothing, just like every other software-based company out there. Literally get paid to do nothing. So, yeah. I don't even... What is... The whole script is here. Nice.
Huh?
That's hilarious.
Oh yeah, it's just the whole. It's on GitHub, right? It's just someone just found it, like the code. It's in his code.
Yeah. There you go. Well, you want to take us out of the show?
Sure. Right. Okay. So thanks for watching the Mixed Media Podcast. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can always join us on our Discord. You can find our Discord link by going to mixedmediapodcast.com. Yeah, mixedmediapodcast.com. You'll find our links to everything, including Discord. And while you're there, you'll also find us on our other platforms, such as YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, Rumble, Apple Podcasts. I don't know, literally anywhere you might want to find us. There's a better format that you wanna watch us in. You can hop over there. You can also actually watch us, or listen to us, rather, I should say, on Discord. Discord has a it's not a podcasting feature per se, but you can use it for podcasting, and so that works too. Yeah, we would be glad to hear what you guys have to say about the episode on Discord. It's definitely the best way to contact us. And yeah, is that all?
That's all I got. Oh wait, and shout out to 99 Crime and Rob Sharma. 99 Crime's listening right now. Sup, dude? And Rob Sharma for supporting us for $5 a month on Locals. And shout out also to the $3 a month sale that's happening on Locals right now. If you join Locals right now, it'll only be $3 a month from now up until when I remember to stop that in January. So if you want to get on that, you should get on that. There's going to be more perks coming soon as I figure some stuff out, and hopefully some cool other stuff happening with the show. So there you go.
All right. Well, with that, thanks for watching.
Bye.
Look, tell a man no trouble, I don't want beef, man, I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then dead I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. You know, like lean back, brand new bits I live in. We back, man, you never gon' like us. Get them on sight now, let them on like that way. They know I'm more righteous. Look at my life, I'm living alright. I'm nice, you know I'm alright. Cause looking like